Truce between Palestinian resistance and Israel enters final day amid international calls to extend it. The U.S. Navy secures a tanker in the Gulf of Aden after an attempt to hijack the cargo. International Migration Organization says more than 500 Yemenis have been displaced in the past week. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is English News with me, Shaza Abdelbey. Hopes are rising for an extension of Gaza's four-day pause in fighting as the truce enters its final day. Israel and the Palestinian resistance have signaled interest in extending the hostage deal amid rising calls to prolong the pause in fighting. This report has more details.
On Sunday, Hamas freed 17 more hostages, including 14 Israelis, in a third exchange under the four-day truce. In turn, Israel released 39 Palestinian hostages. A source close to the Hamas movement confirmed that the Palestinian resistance had agreed to extend the truce, which comes to an end on Tuesday morning from 2 to 4 days, while securing the release of between 20 to 40 Israeli prisoners of war. Despite the pause in fighting, Israel has failed to abide by the terms of the ceasefire, shooting northbound Palestinians en masse. The terrorist Israeli troops have also tear-gassed journalists and family members of prisoners near Ofer prison, wounding people with live bullets before releasing the prisoners. Nida Ibrahim, an Al Jazeera journalist, talked to a freed prisoner who reported that prison conditions have deteriorated even further since October 7th. Meals have been cut off to Palestinian captives, who have undergone severe beatings. Freed Palestinian captives reported that they had been threatened prior to their release to not communicate with the media. The statement comes in sharp contrast to what hostages returning to Israel have reported about their captivity. Israeli military correspondent Alon Ben David has spoken to released prisoners of war held in Gaza and reported that they were not subjected to torture or ill treatment. He added that Hamas tried to provide medication daily, though this was not always possible. The hostages reportedly maintained a sense of community, reminiscent of a kibbutz, by engaging in group activities, meetings, and lectures.
אוכל היה במשורה, לא היה הרבה אוכל, הם אכלו מעט, גם רואים על הגוף שלהם שכולן איבדו משקל. תרופות, היה ניסיון של אנשי החמאס לתת להם, אבל לא.
Additionally, he confirmed that statements made by previously released hostage Yocheved Lifshitz about her experience were accurate, countering accusations of media harm against her.
My mom is saying that they were very friendly towards them.
Accounts by freed Israeli hostages all seem to be echoing the same narrative. Hamas militants took care of them in captivity. It is worth noting that while Hamas-held captives were having their basic necessities met, civilians in Gaza were crouching near puddles to gather up rainwater in an attempt to combat dehydration.
To discuss the chances of extending the four-day ceasefire agreement joins me from Ramallah, Mr. Dimitri Diliani, the spokesperson of Fatah Reformist Democratic Faction. Thank you for joining us. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. So less than a day is left on the Gaza truce. Netanyahu said he would welcome the prospect of additional hostages being freed. Hamas said it was seeking to extend the truce by increasing the number of those released from prisons. What is your take on that?
I think this proves that the whole ordeal with the genocide being committed in Gaza has a political reasons behind it. It has nothing to do with military needs or security needs of the state of Israel. Netanyahu wishes to achieve as much political points as possible to kind of survive or make his political career survive, as we all know that he is tanking in all the polls. and he sees in his country's bloodthirst for war and more destruction in Gaza as a way to prolong his political life. I believe that Netanyahu at the end will not give up to international pressure or human reasoning or human values and stop this genocide in Gaza. He will continue his war crimes, his killing spree, because he knows deep down inside it satisfies his society's thirst for blood. And even he is bargaining now for a day here or a day there in the cessation of fire, temporary one. But I do not think that long-term cessation of fire is in his calculations at all, as also evident by his army officers' press statements and interviews that are blastering all throughout Israeli media. All they doing are talking about the blood and destruction that is coming on the way to Gaza.
Mr. Diliani, the whole world is pressuring Israel, and Israel is under enormous pressure to extend the ceasefire. But right now you said that even like the international pressure is not going to make Netanyahu extend the truce. So what is going to make him extend the truce?
I think that the international pressure is not complete without a forceful United States stance. But as we know that the Biden administration is just as complicit in the genocide in Gaza as any of the cabinet members. As a matter of fact, the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, participates in war cabinet meetings in Israel, which makes him a partner, and therefore his country a full partner in this war on Gaza's children. Therefore, as long as the United States and the White House administration do not feel internal pressure strong enough to relay that pressure on the state of Israel, I think there is no ceasefire until the Israeli society quenches his thirst for blood, which could mean thousands and thousands of more victims of Israeli genocide in Gaza. And this might not also be taking place on on the Gaza side also. The circle of Israeli genocide and terrorism might also be extended if Netanyahu sees that it's politically feasible for him to do so.
Okay. And a final point, if you may, what does the future hold for Gaza?
Well, at this moment, we are focusing on two things. One is to make sure that we are putting all we have in terms of international effort to raise the pressure on the state of Israel to halt its genocide against the Palestinian civilian population in Gaza. And two is to assure that as much as possible of humanitarian aid enters and gets distributed in Gaza through our organizational structure. Other than that, we are not really planning for the day after that, but whatever is coming for Gaza, it needs to be ruled through democratic means, and no one will allow the United States of America or the state of Israel to install a ruler for Gaza or bring about unelected leadership to rule Gaza. In other words, we will make sure that whoever is going to be carrying out the responsibilities in Gaza and the rest of the Palestinian territories in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem as well, because it's one political entity, will do so with the approval and the choice of the Palestinian people and the Palestinian people only.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dimitri. We're going to have to leave it here. Thank you so much for your time. The American Fox News network quoted sources as saying that 5 people were arrested after they tried to detain a tanker in the Gulf of Aden. The network reported that the U.S. Navy ship responded to a call launched by the tanker that was flying the Liberian flag and carrying a shipment of phosphoric acid off the coast of Yemen. According to the network, the spokesman for the Zodiac Company was quoted saying the tanker was attacked by suspected pirates while crossing the recommended international waters. Masan project removed more than 3,000 Houthi mines. The project explained that more than 600 mines got removed in the past week, bringing the total explosive removed since the beginning of this month to more than 3,000. The project announced the destruction of more than 400,000 explosive devices in the liberated areas, including more than 51 million mines. Rights Radar called on the Houthi militia to immediately release the head of the Teachers Club. The organization held the leadership of the Houthi militia responsible for the safety and life of educational trade. According to the organization, the detention is an illegal act and is considered a method of oppression intended to silence teachers from demanding their rights. The Houthi militia expelled representative of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights in Sana'a. The move came in the context of systematic Houthi restriction on the United Nations agencies. This report has more details.
The Yemeni government on Sunday accused the international community of inaction in the face of Houthi terrorism after the militia group expelled a UN official from Sana'a. Government officials said in a statement that the Iran-linked Houthi terrorist militia has expelled the deputy representative of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Safiruddin Saeed, from its controlled areas. He said the move is part of Houthi militia's restrictions on UN agencies in Yemen. This comes 3 years after the group has banned the OHCHR representative, who was appointed in 2020, from entering the agency's office in Sana'a, just as it did with former representative El-Hubayd Ahmed. The Houthi move also came weeks after the group has killed Hisham al-Hakimi, the security and safety director at the international charity Save the Children, after he was in Houthi detention for 2 months. After this incident, Save the Children suspended its operations in Houthi-controlled areas to put pressure on the Yemeni militia to investigate the death of al-Hakimi. Also, 3 months ago, the militia group kidnapped 3 UN employees, including 2 since November 2021 and 1 since August 2023, not to mention 3 former and current US embassy staff. Government officials condemned Houthis' actions as having been the result of the failure of the international community, mainly the UN and its agencies, to shoulder their duties to address them. There have also been previous attacks on aid workers through the years of the conflict. The Houthi group has continued to harass humanitarian workers in Yemen and to undertake systematic repression against them, including abductions, home raids, and assassinations, as well as many practices that harm and affect the lives of organization workers and restrict their relief work, which meets the needs of many Yemeni civilians.
2 children were killed in a Houthi mine explosion in Al-Bayda. The Yemeni Mine Observatory said that the mine exploded in the 2 children while they were grazing livestock in Al-Bayda. They added that all districts in the province are contaminated with mines, bombs, which have caused civilian casualties recently. A number of Houthi officials were reported to be killed in confrontations with the government forces west of Taiz. Field sources said that the 4 Houthi officials were killed, along with a number of elements, after they tried to infiltrate military sites of government forces in Maqbana area. The Houthi militia media acknowledged the funeral of 4 of its dead without mentioning their places of death, but some who attended the funeral ceremony indicated that they have been killed on Al-Barah and Maqbana fronts. Displacement in Yemen continues to aggravate due to the 9-year conflict. The International Organization for Migration announced that more than 200 people got displaced this week. This report has more details.
The International Organization for Migration announced the displacement of 42 Yemeni families from several Yemeni governorates during the past week. The organization said in its weekly report that its displacement tracking metrics monitored the displacement of 42 families, representing 252 individuals, during the period from the 19th to 25th of November. It indicated that The displaced families settled in Hodeidah, with 26 families originating from within the governorate, in addition to 10 families in Ma'rib and 5 families in Taiz, were originated from Hodeidah and Hadramaut. According to UN statistics, the total number of displaced people since the beginning of the year until November 25 rose to 9,571 families, representing 57,426 individuals. The displaced are living a life which is threatened by rain and sandstorms in its current and recurring season. With every disaster caused by torrents, thousands of displaced families are left without food or even a shelter during the absence of any serious humanitarian action or prior plans by humanitarian organizations, at a time when organizations have not succeeded in making even barriers to protect the homes of the displaced from the ongoing floods. Constant anxiety accompanies the displaced with the rainy season and sandstorms, a seasonal and recurring disaster that the displaced have been suffering for 9 years, despite the fact that the concerned authorities and humanitarian organizations have not taken any proactive steps or even emergency plans to confront disasters and climate fluctuations. The strategy of the humanitarian organizations operating in Ma'rib Governorate remains based on the post-phase of the disaster, without any effort from them to confront disasters before they occur, which doubles the suffering of the displaced, while they only represent a number among the lists of victims, laying on organizations' records.
Coming next in the news. Painting exhibition held in Aden to support Gaza children and show Yemeni heritage.
Sea tortoises in Yemen are prone to extinction, with 90% of them are female. The severe gender imbalance will continue until it brings about the complete loss of sea tortoises in Yemen.
لا ضعيف الذكور وخاصة في الفترة الأخيرة هذه يعني قبل هذا شهر يناير هذا تحصل أكثر شيء ميتين الذكور على الشواطئ من الوسط هذا يعني مليان الذكور ميتين يعني كثير يعني باليوم نحصل 10 حبات 15 حبة مليان منهم يعني وخفوا بالكثير ما شيء زي أول لأن أول كان تحصل لهم مخلوطين الذكر والأنثى الآن أكثر شيء الإناث.
هناك دراسات عملت في كثير من المناطق الساحلية في المنطقة الاستوائية وأثبتت ارتفاع نسبة الإناث مقارنة بالذكور لتصل حتى إلى نسبة أكثر من 90% من نسبة الفاقسات، وبالتالي سيعرض نسبة الذكور بشكل عام إلى التناقص وربما خلال أعوام قادمة إلى الانقراض للذكور من السلاحف البحرية.
Welcome back. A painting exhibition was organized in the interim capital of Aden. Different artworks for young female artist Nadia Al-Muflahi have been presented. This report has more details.
Nadia Al-Muflahi hosted a fine art show of 80 paintings in the presence of a number of authorities and fine artists in Aden. Influenced by rural life, artists and sports, her paintings were a blend of realism and modernism.
We had a great turnout today. I was very pleased with the notable figures and ministers in attendance. I really hope they like the exhibition. We need to showcase Aden's fine art scene and bolster local talents.
Her brushstrokes spoke of the agony experienced by Gaza's men, women, and children, layered in a soul-stirring composition that gripped the hearts of attendees. Other paintings depicted international football players and emblems of the nation's heritage.
I have 83 paintings on display at this exhibition. Some are done in oil paint, charcoal, dried coffee, or in the style of pop art. I try to diversify my use of mediums. The pieces featuring Palestine caught my attention as they depict the profound suffering and the demolition of native land. We call upon the Arab nation to stand for Palestine.
This exhibition reflected the country's ancient heritage. Amidst the current turmoil yanking at the fabric of the Arab world, Yemen's youth guided their brushstrokes to champion peace in Yemen and the world.
Here's a reminder of the main headlines. Truce between Palestinian resistance and Israel enters final day amid international calls to extend it. The U.S. Navy secures a tanker in the Gulf of Aden after an attempt to hijack the cargo. International Migration Organization says more than 500 Yemenis have been displaced in the past week. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.